right, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. Can I have everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please, and stand if you're able. Flag right over here. Present arms. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Arms. Thank you, everyone. You can be seated. Welcome, town officials from North Andover and Boxford. Town Manager Melissa Rodriguez, Town Administrator for Boxford Matt Coogan, members of the Select Boards and Legislative team for our district. If not for their work, the Medal of Fidelity would not have been approved. Thank you for attending and helping our office in the towns of North Andover and Boxford to continue to honor our veterans and their families for their service, their sacrifice on this Gold Star Family weekend, which is observed in the last Sunday of September. The Medal of Fidelity was proposed by the Mass legislative body, for which we, as VSOs, are grateful, and signed into law in the SPEED Act by outgoing Governor Baker in October of last year. The Medal of Fidelity was created for the surviving spouse or dependent of a veteran who has passed due to their service-connected disability. The Medal of Fidelity will be presented to 8 families today at this time. The General can speak more on the medal. We are honored to be joined today by Brigadier General McGurn of the U.S. Army, Mass National Guard, representing Governor Healy's office, to present to our 8 families today. There will also be presentations from the legislative team following General McGurn, Congressman Moulton's office, State Senators Tarr and Feingold, and Representatives Ramos and Wen. Once the citations are read, I will call each family up to receive the medals and the citations. Also, we have challenge coins from the towns in North Andover and Boxford that will be presented this time. At this time, I'll hand things off to Brigadier General McGurn, followed by the Boxford North Andover legislative team. General?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is quite a professional honor. It's humbling to be here to represent the governor and the Commonwealth as well, to recognize the sacrifice and the pain and the grief of families who have lost service members due to their service. What I'd like to point out is 2 things. First, it's not an award. Sometimes people lapse into saying, well, it's an award. I don't think anyone would want to be awarded under the conditions that would qualify them for this medal. The second thing is, as important as the service member is, the family. This is to recognize the family. This is not a presentation to a veteran. It's a presentation to a veteran's family. As Mr. LeBlanc pointed out, there was initially a Medal of Liberty, which was designed for people who were killed in a theater of war or killed in combat or died of wounds related to combat. And as soon as we started holding the boards, there's a 3-member board, meets in a public forum to validate each of these. As soon as we began sitting down and discussing these, we began to see requests from people whose loved ones had died after long and often agonizing injuries, illnesses, maladies that were a part of their service, but were not recognized as a direct action. In other words, they weren't killed in the theater of battle. And we had some very solid advocacy, both from communities like the Veterans of Foreign Wars, some Gold Star parents organizations, and it became apparent almost immediately that this recognition was required. And then you were told the rest. You know, the legislative body got together, these advocates got together, and they made the Medal of Fidelity happen. It's not something that the Mass Guard happened. We were just entrusted with the presentation. So it's super important to us in the military, us in the National Guard, and it is important to the leadership of the Commonwealth. Governor Healy has continued the tradition that Governor Baker was fortunate enough to sign into law. So with that, I'd talk all day about this. It means a lot to family members, but what I'll do is just stop and get on with the recognition of these families.
Okay, and then we have Steve Bond from Congressman Knowlton's office. Is just going to come up and maybe say a few words.
Hi, good morning. My name is Steve Bond. I work for Congressman Moulton's office as his Veterans Director. I help with a lot of VA cases, so I'm on the front line in the district helping families directly, whether it's aid and attendance applications, any support for families and their veterans. I'm a veteran myself, served in Afghanistan in 2008 with the 101st Airborne Division, 506 Infantry Regiment. Fortunately, towards the end of my deployment, I was injured by a suicide bomber by a dump truck. The building I was in collapsed on me, requiring multiple surgeries at Walter Reed Army Hospital. So being able to be here and being with the families, I know the struggles and the sacrifice that families make all too well. So I want to be here. I thank you. The Congressman wishes he could be here. He truly does. But fortunately, with all the chaos going on in D.C. right now, he's working hard. So I thank you, and I can't wait to meet you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Now we have Senators Feingold and Senators Tarr.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a beautiful day. We have an amazing life here, not only in North Andover, Massachusetts, and the United States. But you have to realize that people don't have that everywhere. And there are people that have given us that freedom. And there are people that have made big sacrifices. And when I look at all of you, I want you to know how much I appreciate the sacrifice all of you have made for your spouses and people you loved, people you knew. And the hard part is that this battle that so many of your loved ones fought is still going on today. There is evil in this world. There are people that don't want democracy. But I genuinely thank you for what you've given me, what you've given my family, to have this amazing life we have here in the United States. So please let us know that you know that we are grateful for the sacrifice that all of you have gone through. Thank you.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with all of you today, and I want to thank the members of the Massachusetts National Guard that are with us. I want to thank Joe LeBlanc for organizing this, and I want to thank everyone who's here today to recognize the service and sacrifice of the veterans that are to be honored posthumously with the award of this medal. There are many things that make the United States of America the greatest nation on the face of the earth. One of the most important is that we share a set of core values that no matter who we are, where we come from, or what else we believe, unite us in a common purpose. The purpose of liberty and equality and justice for all. Those are important words. They're important concepts. But they're given life by the men and women who are willing to put themselves in harm's way and all too often make the ultimate sacrifice so that those words and those concepts could have reality. And that when foes of those things arise, they are confronted. And they're confronted effectively and forcefully and decisively so that we can move forward with the great American experiment of trying to not only govern ourselves according to those principles, but also aspiring to the day when all of the people in this world will benefit from those principles. That requires very real sacrifice. It requires sacrifice on the battlefield from the men and women that serve. It requires sacrifice for the family members that are at home, living with their absence, living with the pain of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow and the uncertainty of that, living with raising children and families while they're away. And after they're gone, living with the feeling of loss. But we hope today that that feeling of loss will be responded to, even if in some small way, by the expression of gratitude that is made on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the people of the United States of America. because as the citations that Representative Feingold and I will present to you say, we honor today that legacy. That legacy that didn't end on a battlefield, didn't end when they came home, that endures forever. It lives in our hearts and in your hearts each and every day. And beyond that, it lives as part of the great story of this country, of brave men and women who've been willing to give our ideals life and our nation vitality and our way of life that is the most precious gift, that way of life, the ability to continue. So we thank you, and it's an honor to be here with all of you today. It's an honor to be able to present these citations. And I often say that it is never too late, and there is never a wrong time to thank a veteran. That is also true of veterans' families. May God bless all of you and all of them, and may God look on this as we all gather together with favor, as we remember, we honor, and we celebrate. Thank you.
Good morning. I am State Representative Adrienne Ramos, and I'm here also on behalf of Representative Tram Nguyen, who could not be with us today. Earlier this week, I learned of the passing of a friend of mine who served 28 years as a colonel in the Army, who was exposed to burn pits and passed after a 2-year battle with brain cancer. I haven't had a chance to learn what your families have been through, but I have seen what her family has been through. They have a 14-year-old son who is their youngest, who will not have a father to guide him through the rest of his life because of the sacrifice that he made in serving this country. And I'm proud to be here to represent this state and to recognize the sacrifices that your families made, because it doesn't end on the battlefield. And I'm certainly becoming much more familiar with that. I think we hear about the sacrifices families make during their time of service and while your service member is away, but we don't hear about that ongoing commitment and sacrifice. And so I'm honored to be here. I'm happy to hear that we are finally taking some recognition, because it is emotionally and physically draining, and it is important that we recognize that serving our country doesn't just come at the front lines. Serving our country comes from those who are here at home. So thank you so much for your sacrifice and your time and your commitments to your family and to our country.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, we'll present the medals and citations of family members.
I'll read the citation instead of reading it, each time that we have a family member up here. To all who shall see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has presented the Medal of Fidelity for Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 33, Section 67B. There shall be a Medal of Fidelity which shall be awarded to the next of kin of service men and women from the Commonwealth who died as a result of either combat-related post-traumatic stress disorder or other disorder approved by the Adjutant General, condition resulting from a service-connected traumatic brain injury or a combat-connected disease, condition, or injury related to the exposure to harmful toxins, herbicides, agents, or materials where the exposure occurred while serving in the armed forces of the United States, active or reserve components, or the Massachusetts National Guard. Signed by Maura T. Healy, Governor and Commander-in-Chief, and the Adjutant General of the Commonwealth, Gary Keith. So that's the wording of the certificates, and I think now we're ready to honor these families.
Outstanding. Mrs. Pamela Clenny, North Andover wife of Chief Warrant II Roger Plenty, United States Army, Purple Heart, Vietnam.
If there are any other family members here, please feel free to come on up and join Ms. Clay. We can present the citations. And on behalf of the governor of the Commonwealth, it's honored to present this to you. I would caution you that the metal does kind of squirm another metal in the carrying it, so next time you come in, be really cautious. But it doesn't come carry this with it. Have you? It's quite a connection.
Mrs. Nancy Barry of North Andover, wife of Sergeant James Barry, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam.
This is very, it's an honor for me on behalf of the government to present the certificate and to you. I just,
Mrs. Carolyn Barnes of North Andover, wife of Specialist 4 Thomas Barnes, United States Army, Purple Heart recipient, Vietnam. Mrs. Kathy Green of North Andover, wife of Corporal Alan Green, United States Marine Corps, Purple Heart, Vietnam. Mrs. Linda Whaley of North Andover, daughter of Corporal Michael Whaley, United States Army, POW, Purple Heart, World War II. Jillian Kemp, Veteran Service Officer from our office, will be accepting on behalf of Mrs. Elaine Brophy of North Andover, wife of Sergeant First Class Ralph Brophy, United States Army, Korea, as she could not be here with us today. Mrs. Doreen Pacheco of North Andover, wife of Sergeant Stephen Pacheco, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Mrs. Susie Fairman of West Boxford, wife of Lance Corporal Frank Fairman, United States Marine Corps, Purple Heart, Vietnam. at this time, if any of the family members would like to say a few words, it's not required, but if you'd like to, please.
I think I cry too much.
I know.
Yeah, not necessary, but if anybody would like to say a few words.
Sorry for crying, but my father would be honored for today's date. He gave everything to this country. And for many years, he always was proud of this country. And he served his time valiantly. And always, how do I say, thought of everybody else. He had many problems over the years over this, injuries, even psychological. But he managed for the country. I don't know. He gave his all. And we thank anybody who serves our country because it means a lot to everybody. And we don't always appreciate that. I'm sorry I'm crying.
No.
But he's there up there right now, proud as anything, happy as can be about this. And he would be honored to see this today. Thank you.
Very hard for me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Frank and I met at the Bronx VA hospital. He was shot in Vietnam last tail end Charlie in a squad, picked off by a sniper. And the bullet fragmented in him and nicked his liver, his kidney, wiped out his kidney, his pancreas, and his spine, and he was a paraplegic. He spent the next 22 months in the hospital. I was 16 and he was 20 when we met, and we were together almost every day until he died 5 years ago. He got out of the hospital. He got an apartment. He drove and drove. He drove 200,000 miles in 22 months. Just because he had that freedom. And I came up to go to school. He followed me up. We got married. He went to Northeastern, and then he worked for 35 years until he got too sick from his injuries. And I was his caregiver throughout all of those years, whenever needed, as were each and every one of us here, one way or another. Sometimes our children suffered because we put our husbands first, but I'm proud of him and I'm proud of us. So thank you.
What I would like to say is that my husband, Steve, was a very proud American, and he was proud that he served in Vietnam. Unfortunately, from his time in Vietnam, he obviously picked up something anyway, but the last year of his life was very, very tough, very tough. We went to Mass General, the VA hospital in West Roxbury, and then in rehab in the Hebrew Center in West Roxbury. Through all this time, I just have to say how wonderful the VA system was to us. They were, no matter where we went, to the Lowell Clinic, they were always they were just so respectful of him. And I was very grateful for that. So thank you so much for recognizing the fact that, we were part of the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Absolutely.
My husband, Roger, Chief Warrant Officer, helicopter pilot in Vietnam, loved this country like no one I have ever seen, and was the bravest man I've ever met in my entire life, almost as brave as my father. who served in World War II. Roger, anyone he ever say, thank God we live in the United States. Thank God we live in the United States. He was waiting for flight school, and he and the few people that were left from that were graduating for flight school from his class were made MPs down at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And they weren't being given orders to go to Vietnam. They were just stuck in the police department or the MP department. And finally, they wrote to Senator Kennedy begging him to send orders so they could go to Vietnam. So off they went, and he served his year there and came home, as we all know, a proud, proud, proud soldier. He was fine for many, many years until he was brought back to Vietnam through PTSD. And it was a horror show. Absolutely horror. Any marriage can live through that is a marriage to be celebrated. And we did live through it. Excuse me. Started his own business, flew with the National Guard. On weekends, went on his two-week boot camp with the National Guard for a long, long time until they moved to the Cape and we couldn't tolerate having that traffic anymore. They moved from the Fitchburg Airport to the Cape. And still he loved his service. He belonged to the helicopter pilots reunion club. We met somewhere different every year, and we partied like it was 1969. Fabulous group of people. And then we found out he had lung cancer, and they gave him 12 to 14 months to live. And then he developed pulmonary fibrosis from the chemo and was on oxygen 24/7 for the last 2 years of his life. And like I said, bravest man I've ever met. Never complained, was only concerned about me, what was going to happen to you when I go. And Joe has made my life easier. And thank you, Joe. And thank you, all of you, for celebrating us and what we've given, celebrating them for what they gave. They gave everything. Thank you, ladies.
I met my husband 2 months after he got out of the Marine Corps, and he said that if he ever thought of getting married, he'd re-up and go back in the Marine Corps. But that didn't happen. We got married a year later, and we lived in Lawrence for a while, and like Pamela's husband, he was fine for a number of years, and then he got lung cancer, and he had 2 lobes of his right lung removed, and he was a trooper. He was the toughest guy I've ever known. And he survived 11 years, but he had thyroid cancer, melanoma, and bladder cancer, and he faced every single challenge with bravery, and I am so proud of him. I told him that when he was lying in bed dying. I said, I am so, so proud of you for what you've done and how you faced everything. So, and like all of your husbands, he was so proud to be a Marine, and once a Marine, always a Marine, and he loved this country also. So I am very proud of him, and thank you all for being here, and thank you for this recognition. It means an awful lot to all of us. Thanks.
Yes. My husband died 9 months ago. He was in the Marines. He would have gone back a million times, never complained. He was sick for 35 years with service-connected disabilities. And now he's at peace. I am echoing all these ladies here. He was the strongest person I've ever known. I loved him deeply. We had a wonderful life together, and I'd do it all over again. Thank you so much for everything.
service and thank you for your sacrifice.